Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Boobies and Noobies. You can follow us at Boobies Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. And if you'd like to support the podcast and get a little extra bonus Boobies content every month, you can support us on Patreon at Boobies Podcast. And a super special shout out to our February Patreon supporters, My Worst Date Podcast, Natalie Medved, Michelle Jace, Tristan Lamb, The Cutaways Podcast, Elizabeth Cerna, Becky Feldman, and Jessen.Elizabeth. Thank you guys so much for your support. Welcome to Boobies and Noobies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today I'm joined by the dynamic duo podcasting team behind your Angry Neighborhood Feminist podcast. Give it up for Keegan and Madigan.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be back with you, Kelly.
I was going to say, people might recognize Keegan's name and voice. She is also one of the podcasters behind My Worst Date podcast,
yes,
who
ma'am.
we have podcasted with before.
Yes.
And I am the noobiest of noobies.
The
today.
noobiest.
Perfect.
The most noobs. The most noobs right now is
most
Madigan.
noobs. Most noobs of all the boobs is Madigan. No, that's perfect. I love it. And so Keegan will have an interesting perspective because now that you've read 2 books for this podcast.
I have indeed, yes. I
I've
have
never-
thoughts and feelings.
I've never read a romance novel in my life. This
Perfect.
is my first
That's
one.
what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wonderful. That's right. So before we talk about the book itself, how about you give us all a brief about your Angry Neighborhood Feminist podcast? What's going on with the show? What is the show? How can listeners find it?
Well, basically, the kind of slogan at the beginning of our show is that we're a podcast that explores the world through our own personal feminist perspectives. So we kind of touch on a lot of different topics about feminism and things going on in the world. We do 2 episodes a week. One of them being a mini episode, which is like what's in the news, and then another one around whatever topic we choose. Like last month we just did Black History Month, so
Perfect.
we surrounded all of our episodes around that. And now in March it's Women's History Month, so we're touching on a lot of things directly for women's issues, even though we do all the time. We kind of hone in on Women's History Month kind of specific episodes and things like that.
Yeah, so we started the podcast because we were having a lot of conversations just together. So, we were kind of like having a lot of thoughts and feelings, and we were feeling particularly angry about kind of a lot of situations that were happening in our world and in our culture. So we were just having conversations together, and we were like, you know what, we should broaden our community and kind of like reach out to other people who maybe feel like they don't have anyone to talk to or commiserate with about these issues. So we don't pretend to be historians or women's history majors,
right?
And we're just having conversations.
Well, it seems like it's also like cathartic in a way, just to like not only share your feelings with each other, but also to put them out there where people are probably experiencing the same issues, the same feelings, that they can find a place to go to.
Yeah, and the community that we've created is really, I think, the thing that we wanted to start with, and we've like very much achieved that, which makes me feel really good. Like we get a lot of really great messages from people sharing their experiences and their stories, or what they've thought about what we said, correcting us sometimes. And it's really great because it's taught us so much more about feminism and about different people in the world. And also, it just feels really good to know that you kind of have those people that have your back, especially on social media.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
absolutely.
It's really
Scary
great.
place.
Yeah, we've got some listeners that we like interact with a lot, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. It's so funny how social media can be both a great way to connect people and freeing, and then also terrifying in the same sense.
It can be the most supportive place or the most scary place you've ever seen. So if you guys want to give us a listen, or you're interested in checking us out and seeing what we're about, you can find us pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public.
Our Instagram is at Angry Neighborhood Feminist, and our Twitter, which we
seldom check. We're very bad at Twitter.
I can't even get on Twitter on my phone. I don't know how. I don't understand.
2019 goals.
I don't know why. I click on it. Like, I used to use Twitter, like, my senior year of high school when I first moved to LA. I would use Twitter all the time, and now it won't even let me log in.
Yeah.
Well, but
understand. you guys function pretty much out of Instagram.
Pretty much out of Instagram. Yeah. That's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
So if you would like to join us on Instagram, we would love to have you at Angry Neighborhood Feminist. If you want to reach out to us, we're very responsive in our DMs as well. So.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And can I ask, what do you have on the horizon? Like, what's coming up? I know we're talking about Women's History Month. Do you have any specific ideas in mind that you want to share?
Well, I kind of got the idea of wanting to talk more about the different feminist movements in different countries, because we focus so much on the United States because that's what we know.
Sure.
So I'm really interested to learn more about what happens in other countries and what their feminist movement has been like. We just did a Forgotten Feminist Favorites episode, which we do a lot of throughout the year. But those are also really fun because you get to learn about these early feminists that probably didn't even know they were feminists at the time and how they kind of shaped the early suffragette movement and things like that. It's
and you know, you probably never heard of. We've definitely done episodes on women that we've never heard of, so it's allowed us to learn a lot, and we hope that we can share that knowledge as well.
I like it. You're looking back on history, but also making history while moving forward.
Oh my god!
Yeah, perfect.
And then what is it? Is it June that it's coming out month? I always forget.
June is Pride Month.
Pride Month, yeah. So we always do a coming out episode.
Great.
Listeners write in their stories of coming out, whether negative or
so
positive,
empowering.
to their families, and that's one of my favorite
episodes of all time.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was really great. So
So lots to look forward to in the upcoming months. How exciting.
Always a good time.
Is there, last thing I'll ask about the podcast, is there anything you're angry about right now?
Oh,
I mean, constantly. Not to get too political. I don't want to, steer us too much in that direction.
Sure.
But I think, especially having done this podcast, we pay so much more close attention to politics and the news. I think that that's kind of been a result of where we are politically. I think a lot of people are far more politically active and engaged than they have been in years past, and that's definitely true for us, especially since we have to read the news and keep up with it, because we do an episode kind of briefing people on what's in the news once a week. So constantly there are things that pop up that are a little infuriating and difficult to swallow, but I think we've learned to kind of manage that better.
That's great.
Having to talk about it so much.
Yeah, it is. You said earlier how cathartic it is to share, and I think that definitely when we talk about things in the news, it's really cathartic for us to talk about it. I mean, we've had some episodes where we've had to stop and cry. There have been some episodes where we've just been so angry that we've had to rein it in a little bit, but there is something afterwards when you're done with it that you just kind of feel this sense of release that is really wonderful,
especially when you start getting responses from listeners who are like, oh my gosh, this episode really hit me very hard. I know whenever we talked about the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, we had a whole episode on that, and
rough.
That one was hard on us, but it was also really lovely to get so many responses from listeners who were kind of
on the same page.
This episode, it was hard for me too, but it's nice to know that we all have a community together.
Yeah, we're not alone.
Kind of be with.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And I think, like you said, you're reading a lot more news.
Yeah.
It's empowering to stay informed. As angry as it can make you to read these headlines or check out the latest news that's trending on Twitter.
Sometimes you have to make yourself do it.
Yeah, it's true.
I can't do this today. There are days where I'm just I don't want to look at another bad thing, but it's it almost is nice to kind of have to face it and then talk about it.
Yeah, because then you do have the power to be able to talk about it. I have this conversation with people a lot because I know people who, rather than read it and be angry, they want to just kind of shield themselves from it. And I understand that as well, of just taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are days that's self-care, man. There are times where I know I am not physically, emotionally ready to read certain things, but it is when you're ready and you're able to face it, I think it's really empowering.
Well, and if you, oh, absolutely. And if you can't read it, that's why we have podcasts like your Angry Neighborhood Feminist, so you can catch up.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So today, the three of us will be discussing the book Making Sense by Lila Rose. First of all, can we just talk about the fact that the author's name is Lila Rose?
Do you think that's really her name?
I don't know, but
totally
it's so romance slash
absolutely
maybe
really
doing the poll a little bit.
I was gonna say, I feel like she's like the single mom who, like, kind of like the character in the book who, like, works at a sex shop. She's like the single mom that, like, has an office job during the day and then writes these
secretly, like, at night
after she
romance
tucks
novels.
her kid in at night.
Like, her name is really Karen.
Yeah, she has like a glass of wine as she sits down to write all of her.
She has a glass of wine that says, like, stay-at-home dog mom on it.
Yes!
Like,
but she goes by Lila Rose.
And her real name is, like, Jane Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I said Karen, so I mean, I'm with you. But yeah, this is Making Sense by Lila Rose. The book was published almost a year ago today. It's in March 2018.
What do you know?
Perfect timing. It's available on Amazon for $3.99, Kindle edition, and I don't think it's a part of a series officially, but I did notice in looking at what else the authors put out there that there was a book a year before this one called Making Changes.
Yeah.
And they kind of have the same look. Like, it's both a uptight businessman on the cover and a curvier plus-size woman.
I noticed that as well.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how related the books are, but they're both making blank.
Something,
so that's out there. Yeah, yes. I'm curious to see if there's another one. I mean, it's March 2019. Is there another one coming out?
Maybe.
Is there an update, Lila?
Yeah, come on, Lila. We need to know.
Let's find her on Instagram. Let's ask her.
Find Miss Lila Rose.
Lila Rose.
So, along the lines of romance in general, Madigan had already mentioned she'd never read a romance novel.
Nope.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on that? Like, is there a reason why? Had you ever thought about doing it?
I have tried. Like, I remember reading over my friend's shoulder, reading 50 Shades of Grey, and I was like, this is pure shit.
Everyone's introduction is 50 Shades of Grey.
I was like,
or Twilight, or The Notebook.
I mean, well, that's what I was going to say. When I was little, the first time I ever got, like, that tingly feeling from, like, reading a book was The Notebook.
Okay.
When I read The Notebook when I was really young and I dog-eared the sex page.
You're like, I will be referring to that later.
But then I tucked it, like, behind all the other books in my bookcase, and I would just, like, because I didn't want my mom to, like, be like, why is this page
right, exactly.
You know? So, I mean, I have read, like, steamy parts of books.
Sure.
But I've never gone out of my way to buy a romance novel, and I don't know why, because I'm doing this thing this year where I'm trying to read a book a week.
Oh, great.
So I read constantly, and I don't know why. I just never, I'm like a big historical fiction fan.
Well, and this is the perfect excuse then for you to try out other genres. There's definitely historical romance.
Yeah.
Had I known that's what you were interested in,
we
could have dabbled in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially because this year I'm kind of trying that challenge on myself that like this has kind of opened a door where I might kind of dabble in some more stuff. Although I gotta say, I was expecting way more sex. I was a little disappointed.
Always what it is.
It's a conversation that we've had multiple times on this show where it's either the raunchiest thing and we're thinking, wait, where's the story?
Yeah.
Or it's, okay, this is great, you know, characters are fine, stories are great, but I'm also looking for a little action.
I know. I'm like, how many pages am I going to have to read before something starts happening down
And you know what? Every romance is different. Like, so this one I would categorize personally as a slow burn romance, meaning that when you do get to that moment, it's like very combustible. Like, hopefully it pays off for the wait.
There is a sense of like everything they said is like foreplay kind
of.
There's
tension.
There's that sexual tension.
Good tension. Whereas, you know, I did an episode with you before, and I feel like that was something that was missing from that book. Is like,
and that was a short story too. That was a novella.
It was shorter, but there wasn't a lot of tension. So and there also wasn't a lot of sex. So when you did get to the sex, there wasn't a feeling of having been built up.
You didn't have, like, the payoff.
Yes, whereas this one, I do feel like there was a lot more tension throughout, which was great. Which was good.
Yeah. And I think we mentioned it on the episode that we did, Keegan, with My Worst Date, that had you read romance before? You dabbled in, like, some Anne Rice?
I had read some Anne Rice.
Okay.
Yes, which when I started reading it, as a huge fan of Hot Topic, I just didn't understand was going to be as erotic as it was. I was in it for the vampires.
Sure.
But, you know, Anne Rice is great, and I really enjoyed that. And then, like Madigan, I did try to read 50 Shades, and I think I got a few chapters in before I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. There is definitely like a thing with me reading these books where I start laughing out loud when they say certain things, and it's just like, but with 50 Shades of Grey, it was like laughing in a different reason, because it's like the dialogue was just so
It was a quality.
bad.
It was because of the quality of the writing, not specifically because of the romance.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I get that. I totally understand. And for me, honestly, I think it's absolutely okay to laugh out loud when you're reading, regardless of the genre. It's okay for you to cry, because these are things we do in real life. We are awkward human beings that have a crazy ray of emotion. Yeah. So I totally get it.
Things make me feel things. Makes me happy. I do.
Good. Before we discuss this book in depth, let me give everyone a brief synopsis, and it is a pretty brief synopsis, about Making Sense by Lila Rose, and this comes directly from Amazon.com. Here you go. Adalyn Sage. I'm 37, a mother, a divorcee, and I'm ready to date again. I need a man willing to love me for who I am, despite what size I am. Only finding such a guy is harder than it's cracked up to be. After all, I'm a little clumsy.
Oh my God.
I think that's...
Sweet Jesus. We're going to talk about that. Put a pin in that for now.
And just a tad outspoken. That is, unless I'm in front of a man so good looking my panties melt. Then I become an absolute weirdo. Don't we all? Case in point, Vice Salvatore.
I can't do it.
That name. Let's hear it one more time.
His name is Vice.
Who names their kid Vice?
Vice Salvatore. Stunning, growly, and also my boss. Is growly a word?
I don't know, but she used the word growl. I would like to tally the number of times she used the word growl in this.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never heard someone growl so much in my life.
He's so growly. And then we go to, thank God his asshole attitude put my racing heart at ease and changed my lust to hate. Nope, I don't care for him. Won't. I'll continue to ignore my ladybits and stay strong, at least for a while.
There are so many things to talk about just in that recap.
Just in that synopsis.
Oh
boy. Okay, yeah, let's start there. Let's start, let's start with the cover. Let's start with the cover of the book, because when I knew that you both were going to be joining me, I wanted something that was maybe on the more feminist spectrum.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely have a lot to say when it comes to romance novels and feminism. And I don't think one is mutually exclusive.
I agree.
But I was especially attracted to this cover because it features a plus-size curvy woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like we don't see enough of that in anything.
I mean, I feel like even though she's written as being like a plus-size curvy woman, like you'll still see some skinny model on the front of a cover of a book. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've had a lot of people actually request books that feature plus size heroines before, like, oh, do you know any, like, are there any out there? And I'm like, yeah, they're definitely there. We just don't see a lot, and we especially don't see them on the cover, like you said, Madigan.
I feel like there's this weird thing where we choose not to see certain women as being sexual, and I feel like plus size women are one of them, where we either like hypersexualize and fetishize them, or it's like you don't see them as being sexual beings at all.
Right.
You see them being more virginous or the best friend and things like that, where seeing somebody who's kind of both, you know, like just
and
a normal person.
Don't see them being paired with these classic hunk type figures.
That's my biggest issue.
And I actually really enjoyed in this book that while it was obviously something that she felt somewhat not self-conscious about, but conscious of, having dealt with partners in the past, I think even in the very first, scene in the book,
when she's on that awful date,
when she's on a terrible date. However, he doesn't bring it up at all.
No, in fact, when she finally gets naked with him, she's like a little bit nervous, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is like better than I was ever expecting.
Right,
like,
and not because she's plus size. He doesn't fetishize her in that way where he's just like, oh my god, I love a bigger woman. Like, he doesn't say anything like that. He just loves her body. This
is like my biggest issue with Melissa McCarthy movies, because I love her. I feel like she's one of the few plus size leading ladies that are out there now, but it's usually made to be a joke.
Yeah.
Or she plays these characters that, you know, are kind of sloppy and like we poke fun at them for being that way. Yeah. And I just think she's absolutely stunning. She is. And I really would love to see her play like what we consider traditional leading lady, you know?
You know, I think that would be great.
Even though and it's interesting because like when she started her career, even though she was playing the best friend in Gilmore Girls, that was never anything that
they
was ever
never talked about like size. They never talked about that.
Never touched on her. It wasn't touched on in her friendship, her relationship.
Yeah.
She was just Sookie, you know, like so.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I feel like it's important to talk about how the different things that people who may be plus size go through. Like I feel like sometimes you don't want to completely ignore something because then you might be ignoring somebody's reality, and it's important to talk about those things, but at the same time it is good to normalize it, you know, have something that touches on it and the struggles that they go through, but also not make it their defining character trait.
Which I think they did a good job of in this book. I agree. They did a good job of that, where they touched on it enough for you to know that it was something that had affected her in the past, but not so much that it was something that really was a problem in her life.
And to be honest, one of my favorite things about the book, and I'm torn, like I did enjoy it for the most part. There are certain things that maybe bugged me a little bit, but what I really loved for the most part was Adalyn's character, because she, I mean, at the very beginning, you know, is on this awful blind date, basically tells the guy off for like criticizing her size, criticizing what she's eating, and she's like,
pasta to go. She's like, I'm still gonna eat this shit.
I love that. I was like, I love that she's not making some excuse to be like, oh, I'm not feeling well. She just straight up is like, you know what, this isn't gonna work because you're a dick. I am fantastic. I'm gonna take my pasta and leave. Yeah. So yeah, she seemed very. Except when it comes to Vice, she's very much able to speak up for herself. She owns the size she is. She's very comfortable in her own skin. Yeah. So, yeah, that was one of the things I really did appreciate about this story.
Yeah, I like that she is such a strong woman. I mean, I think that she actually does have quite a voice when it comes to Vice, because whenever she's angry and upset, like, she's really not afraid to stand up for herself. Like, the first time they meet and he's in the sex shop that she works in, and she doesn't realize that that's her boss who's asking her all these questions about, you know, the spanking and everything like that.
What a great meet cute.
I know, right?
Except for that he's such a dick. Like,
I know.
I have such mixed feelings.
I do too. About both of them. Because she's so outspoken. And like you said, especially when she's angry. So I almost thought that like he was purposefully trying to make her angry so she would be more of herself with him.
He's always like, look me in the eyes and things like that. And he'll rile her up to do that. Yeah, I see their like arguing in their relationship as being a little problematic, because especially like, not to jump ahead to the end, but she like asks her son like if the arguing bothers him and things like that. Because I feel like, certain bickering and stuff is fine in a relationship if that's what your relationship is. But I also feel like he's like egging her on sometimes to like get a reaction out of her, where I'm like,
because then she actually says like what she wants to say, because it would bother me when she was so like, I
God, it bothered me so much.
Look at him, like he's just so sexy.
I'm like, you're a grown lady.
Yeah,
get it together.
And she's been so out there for the rest of the story. It would just be when it came to him that she would just be like this little timid mouse. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, you know, when you meet someone and it's like amazing, of course you're going to be shy and awkward.
And as the queen of sticking my foot in my mouth whenever I'm like uncomfortable or anxious, I get it. Yeah. But this was done, like this paired with her clumsiness was done almost to the point of like complete satire.
Yeah, it was like slapstick.
I was like
very clown.
So many pratfalls. You know what I mean? Like just falling all the time. And I'm just like, all right.
Oh, and then the thing about how she's like peed herself like 3 times. That really bothered me.
There was like 5 pages of that stories of her pissing herself.
Like the first time they mention it, I was like, okay, I feel like everyone's pissed themselves like at least like once or twice.
Too hard. Yeah.
Or like you just really have to go and you like pull over at the side of the road, you know, or something.
But she's like puddles on the floor.
Yeah, and she's like detailing how this has happened to her multiple times. At another point in the book, she says something like Vice surprises her and she's like, oh my gosh, I almost shit my pants.
Yeah. I'm like, never have I once shat myself.
Yeah, honey, I think it's time for you to invest in some Depends.
Yeah, or like
I know you're She's only 37. This is
Lady,
too soon.
go to a doctor and make sure that everything's working.
Something might be medically wrong.
Those
with
commercials
you.
that come on where they're like, do you have to use the bathroom
All the
30
time.
times a day?
Okay, but
Maybe you should see a doctor and get this pill. Like,
I know, but they're like, do you pee more than 15 times a day? And I'm like, yes, I do. Well, maybe you have this problem. I'm like, oh, fuck.
gosh.
I sure hope
But
not.
you make it to the bathroom like an adult person.
This is like multiple times. I am willing to excuse the one time of like you're locked out of the house and she just went. Like, okay.
But like go in a bush. Like pull your pants down
and
go in a bush.
her kid knows this. He
Yeah.
like has no problem like telling people, oh yeah, mom's pissed herself before.
We'll get to it later as their relationship advances, but like, okay, or we can just talk about it right now.
You do it. You get in there.
So right before they like have sex for the first time, and she says that she loves him,
which, mind you, is so far into the book.
So
like,
we're talking about the relationship.
We're talking about like, oh yeah,
we're
for sure.
talking like this is like the last 30 pages.
They've been dating for months, and like they have not had sex yet.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah,
that was
she
interesting.
Meets him and her panties get wet. I'm like, how have you waited this long?
And he's gone down on her, and then months go by.
That was my favorite scene.
That was great. But like months go by until they actually have sex. But so she says she loves him, and he says, I was enchanted by you from the first sight. I was falling when you pissed in front of me. Which I'm like, this is not the time. That's not sexy.
Oh, I forgot that, yeah. Because not only do we talk about how she's peed herself multiple times, but one of the times, because Vice is the stepbrother of her best friend.
Half brother because his dad had two families.
Oh, that's right. It was that situation.
Okay.
Which is not really a plot point in the book whatsoever.
But I gotta say, the characters, especially when they're all speaking, I had a very hard time following who was talking because they'd have multiple characters speaking, and I'd be like, wait, which one is talking right now? And it was in such a conversational tone, the way it was written, that it was just very confusing at times.
The conversational tone I actually liked, but there were a lot of characters that I just felt like didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't there like a Dawn or something? There was like somebody
who now works for her.
Oh,
Den.
All right.
Yeah.
That's another thing. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
That's the thing is, I did enjoy this book. It seemed like it was almost like there were multiple books in it. Like, I felt like it was like Lila Rose was writing it and realized maybe not enough's happening, so I should put in like another subplot sort of thing.
And she kept putting in subplots right up until the very end.
Oh my god, I know. The last chapter is like, turn this car around.
Ties it all up. Like, because there's the subplot with, well, first of all, it starts with not Lila. Her name could be Lila. It starts with Adalyn working in a sex shop.
Yes.
And, it starts with this awful blind date that she goes on. So we know that she's out there, she's dating. And then we find out she's working in a sex shop.
She hasn't had sex in a very long time.
Yeah. And she works in a sex shop. We learn quickly that Vice is not only her boss, but he basically is the owner of many, many businesses, one of which happens to be one that produces porn and has sex shops as well.
Yeah.
And then she goes to work for him, so there's that whole storyline while they're falling in love. Like, that would have been enough. That could have just been it. But then there's the Den is the father of another kid on her kid's basketball team.
Wants to date her.
Yeah, but she
and
like
her
is
son
never
is so involved in her dating life.
Yeah.
Her son is like her wingman. Like,
For
Mom, I'm
real.
gonna hook you up.
Yeah, he's like, oh, actually, we're going this place tonight with this guy.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not. I know. I just said that to make him jealous.
He's 9, which I'm just like,
and a boy. Like, I've never seen a 9-year-old
really interesting.
boy.
Very precocious.
There's a lot going on here. So there's almost so much going on that it's like difficult to recap like what's happening
Without us
entirely.
jumping all
because
over the
everything
place.
I just said is like the first 50 pages. Like, we're not even into the part where her ex-husband comes back into the picture,
and
then
sister.
he's having an affair with her sister, and they're trying to get custody of the kid, and you're just like,
and
where?
that happens in the last like 30 pages. It's
Where
totally
did this
out of
come
left
from?
Field.
Yeah.
Because she mentions her sister like 2 times. Like, oh, we're not close.
And then who knew she would turn into the devil?
I know.
She's the actual worst person.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's so much to unpack, both positive and negative, too. Because, like, for me, this book is kind of all over the place in regards to, like, sex positivity.
Yes.
Because at first I'm like, Oh, because she's like, I don't feel any shame working in a sex
Yeah,
shop.
absolutely.
I feel like people's needs need to get met, and it's not something that should be shameful in any way. And I'm like, wow, so sex positive. I'm so on board with this. And then there are other things, which I'm sure we'll unpack later, where it's very not sex positive. And then what I did like, though, in regards to like her being a mother and having a child, was seeing a very positive mother-son relationship.
Absolutely.
And seeing a very positive older mother-daughter relationship that she had with her own mother. Like, they frame, where I think they got into it a little bit with the sister, but I think usually people have a tendency to frame families as being very, like, problematic and riddled with a lot of problems. Yeah, whereas they showed a mother and son relationship that was very, very loving and affectionate, which I really liked. But yeah, this book was kind of all over the place.
It just was a lot. There was a lot
It wasn't all over
going on.
the place. It was a lot. You're right.
Yeah.
It was pretty structured as far as, like, I didn't know what was happening.
Right. I just kept thinking it was going to end multiple times, and then it would keep going, and it would be stuff that I'm like, this isn't bad. I just don't think we necessarily need this.
It was
in the story.
Rose laying up late at night being like, you know what? I could add this thing. And
then,
like,
we got to put this in. We got to have some family drama.
Yeah.
Yep. Can I ask what you guys thought of just the, like, relationship dynamic between Vice and Adalyn? Because I, for one, found many things to be very problematic.
There were some red flags.
It was,
oh my god.
Yeah, it was one of those ones too where, and this isn't my favorite type of romance, where usually the romance I like is where they get together in the end. Like, there's the struggle, they're together for a bit. Misunderstanding, and then we get together in the end.
This was a relationship.
Yeah, book. This was definitely them basically being in a relationship longer than they'd care to admit.
Yeah.
And then when they finally admit it, they're just together for the rest of the book. It becomes less about their problems as a couple and more about, like, the world's problems around them.
In fact, they don't seem to have problems as a couple. Like,
no, once they get together, they're like, we're set.
Yeah.
I would say, like, it's very possessive. Like,
when the my woman stuff made
oh my
like,
god,
it's very alpha.
Yeah,
it's very alpha.
And then, like, when she pees in front of her, like, best friend accidentally, he like, pulls her and, like, throws her into the bathroom. I'm like, that's a little harsh.
And he's pissed.
She pees a lot in this book. I just keep going back.
She pees in front of people.
Yeah, she pees in front of Vice accidentally. She pees in front of his friend, right? Accidentally, or no, she walks in on him in the bathtub.
Which also, if you're getting ready to go somewhere, why are you in the bathtub?
I just loved picturing this, like, big guy though, just, like, chilling in the tub.
And then, like, there's one where he says, like, for touching what's mine.
Yeah.
Oh, I hated that.
You'll not pee in front of him. You only ever do it in front of me.
Yeah, that
and then he goes, pee, he demanded with a gentle shove to my back toward the toilet. I'm like,
and it's
the
weird.
book?
It's very possessive and strange, and it's also problematic in a way because it's framed as something that she's like, ooh, she's all, like, gushy over.
And I think there's a difference between having, like, the alpha character and having, like, someone who's borderline, like, obsessive possessive.
For real.
So,
there's this one part where at the end when she's mad at him and she's wanting to leave his house, and then he says something like, he would chase her to see the reason and drag her back to my house where I'd lock her and drew away forever.
I mean, and then he does acknowledge, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah.
He's like, it's nuts how I feel about this woman. Like, and
Lila,
I'm like,
there's a delete button on your keyboard. If that sounds crazy, maybe delete a few things.
You know what I think was also a problem in terms of Vice, in terms of us reading Vice, is most of the book is told from Adalyn's perspective.
Right,
and sometimes there are books where you get this dual perspective narrative. But it was only from his POV, like
two or three
times.
And it threw me the first time because we were well into the book.
Right. It wasn't like it was chapter 2. It was like chapter 20 when he popped up with his POV.
Yeah, and I was like, this is odd. I mean, I didn't entirely hate it. Like, it wasn't something that I was like,
it was nice to get his perspective because I was like, what is this dude thinking? Because he does kind of jerk her around a little bit. And so you're like, does he like her or does he not like her?
You didn't really know for sure if he was into her or
not.
not.
And he's like all sweet with his sister talking about her and his sister like loves him.
Yeah.
And, like, all this stuff. So it was like nice to kind of hear that like he's not a total douche, because I'm like, am I supposed to be rooting for
I
this
feel
guy?
like if his perspective had come in much earlier in the book,
Maybe
we would have had a much
more.
easier time understanding
I think
him.
that is a note I will give to you, Lila, if you're listening. Is that, I would have, after their first meeting, and we had, I think it could have been Adalyn's perspective all the way through, even that first dinner scene where she trips and falls and rips her dress open. Like, it totally could have been her perspective all the way through that. And I think after that, if we had gotten a chapter on his feelings from right then on, it would have made more sense. Because when he because I wasn't rooting for him at all. Like, when he goes and basically fires her, and it's just like, I don't want you to work at my stores. Yeah. I was like, that's not okay. Like, that's weird.
And it seemed like it was coming out of nowhere. too.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, he's doing it because I have a son.
Which is fucked up. Can we talk about how fucked up that is? Like, because you think that the story is so sex positive. Yeah. And then you get to a point where you're like, you can't work in an adult store because you're a mother.
Right.
And I'm like, what?
Right.
What is happening? How are we supposed to feel about working in adult stores then?
That store, too, the adult store, she has this great line where she's like, we bonded over bondage. I was like, haha, like, how cute. And then she's like, and then tonight I have to clean the machines and stuff. And I was like, wait, hold up. I'm sorry. Like, there are jerk-off stalls in this shop.
I thought this store seemed classy. And that was his entire thing when he was just like, I wanted to get into making porn movies because I wanted classy porn.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you have, like, jerk-off arcades?
I've never seen that in any adult store I've ever been in.
I have in, like, those massive, or I haven't seen them, but they have them in those massive, like, warehouses. So I'm from, like, Missouri, and if you drive, like, rural Missouri long enough, you'll see, like, giant adult warehouses, and they're like penny arcades.
Surprisingly, there's a lot of, like, adult stores in Oregon, too.
Strange.
Didn't realize.
In rural areas, you'll find them, like, so you have to drive out to the middle of nowhere to go to these things, but those are admittedly seedy places. Like, this is supposed to be, like, a nice place, presumably.
Like a city.
Right. Like, we have one of the...
It seems like they're in a city, you know?
Yeah, there's that random moment where, like, somebody comes into her shop and he's bringing in his brother, and it's like his
introduction.
First time. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. And then there's like, I gotta clean the jerk-off stall.
I'm like,
oh,
jelly
shit.
beans up my nose because I hate the smell of cum.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah. That's, okay. So let's talk about Adalyn for a moment. Her awkward tendencies. We've got, she pees herself way too much / in front of people. She is always falling, tripping, ripping her clothes.
Yes.
And then this was the point where I was like, okay, is this like awkward cute or just plain fucked up?
It's just fucked up.
She's like, I don't like the smell of semen. And I'm like, wait a second.
She has very little impulse control. Yeah. Like, her impulse control is almost non-existent because the amount of times she says things inappropriate and then it's like, did I say that out loud?
Yes.
And I'm like, do you have a
That was like her trademark, was like, oops, I guess I said that out loud.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm actually worried about you, like, medically. I'm not sure, like,
in multiple ways.
Yeah, I'm not sure you have any control over yourself.
Oh, Adalyn.
Yeah, I will say, like, that did get a little old for me. I don't like that trope of, it was very 50 Shades of Grey-ish, that trope of, like, especially in the beginning before you know that he's falling for her, where it's very, like, put together stoic alpha male and like super clumsy, supposed to be a dorkable female.
There were actually a few tropes that I recognized that did remind me a lot of 50 Shades of Grey. Like, not to that extent, but that, you know, he's very alpha businessman, like you said.
Super rich.
She's super awkward. And then also, it seems like she's comfortable with herself, but she can, at the same time, never understand why men would actually be interested in her. And literally every man she meets in this book is fucking obsessed with her. And you're just like, oh.
It's that awful trope of like the One Direction, you don't know you're beautiful and that's what makes you beautiful.
Right.
Right.
And then
like,
he's...
No, girl, own it. You are gorgeous.
Right. And then Vice is also like falling under that trope of like, boys are mean to girls because they like them.
I'm going to pull your ponytail because I like you.
I'm so done with seeing that story in anything.
It's very problematic.
I'm just done.
And we've talked about that a lot, you know, on our show, and I think we were raised with this idea. I'd be interested in knowing how old Lila Rose is. I'm guessing she's, I kind of imagine she is similar in age to the Adalyn character. That's just kind of what I figured.
Okay.
But I really do feel like it's amazing any of us made out of childhood in like the 80s and 90s having any kind of decent relationship ideas, because this was hammered home to us, like that this is how a guy is interested in you, as if he's like mean to you.
And I feel like most girls do go through that and then eventually learn that that's bullshit. And
but you also have, this is a 37-year-old woman who's had a child, who's been married.
Yeah.
Now I get, you know, the whole, it's
her
hard because
it's kind of a dick though. So I feel like her, like she's confident in herself. But because if you have something horrible told to you enough, you do start to believe it in a way.
You take that with you into future relationships.
Yeah, so even though she is confident in herself, because like I'm pretty confident in myself, and I think I'm a good-looking person. But there are also times where I'm like, where I still get insecure about my life.
And everybody has insecurities.
So I feel like maybe that's kind of what her reality is, where like she knows that she's great, but she's still so concerned about optics and how other people are going to see her and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I think everyone gets into that comparison game, which you do see in this book
very
a little
real.
bit. But can we, this is maybe jumping ahead, but I need to bring this up because can we talk about the weird standoff fight between Den and Vice? And also Den and Vice. Two men are interested in you. Their names are Den and Vice.
Yeah. Well, and her name's Adalyn. I mean, that wasn't like the most common name either.
I just found that incredibly problematic.
I
They're
agree.
at their son's basketball game.
Not the time or place.
Not the time or place.
No.
He was like, they treated her like she wasn't even there when
she
they were talking.
And she was property, essentially. She was like a prize.
That happens a lot, too, I noticed. Like, not just with Den and Vice. Den, by the way, is just like a useless character.
Right,
like,
he
doesn't need to be there.
Out, honestly, entirely.
Yeah, because there's never this idea that there's going to be a love triangle. I mean, it's set up very early on that he's interested in her, even though he doesn't know her, and she's not interested in him, and she's super attracted to Vice. So you're like, oh, okay, well, this is never going to be
Well, and I
a
thought
problem.
that they were going to give us something with Den to be like, he actually is a secret jerk. He you know, like, he's that nice guy who's actually not a nice guy.
Right.
He does something bad, but he doesn't. Like,
No.
He literally
He's just very
couldn't.
vanilla.
He didn't have to be in the story at all, and it really wouldn't have changed the story much in any way.
No, it just was another plot device to have Vice be kind of like an asshole,
A weird,
honestly.
possessive jerk.
And she's like sitting watching her son playing basketball, feeling super uncomfortable. I'm sorry, that is a huge turnoff for me.
It would be for me too.
I hate fighting. I hate when guys get all macho and confrontational. I'm like, you don't have to do this. Like, you can just like, the more mature thing would be to walk away or have a discussion with the person you're with.
Have a discussion with me. Yeah, because what happened was like, Vice went in and immediately went up to Den, who he doesn't know, and was like, we need to have a talk.
And
they like, you're encroaching.
So they wouldn't have like a date.
And so they went outside and had a talk together, and then they came inside all fucking weird. Like, it felt like one of those 90s movies whenever, like, two people have had a dog and they make the dog stand between them and they're like, here, boy,
you come
decide to which one you love more.
Yeah.
And so they put her literally in between them and sat on either side of her, and then basically tried to do that thing where they made her decide.
No, I'm with you. I feel like on more than one occasion, I felt like the male characters in general were almost more like caricatures of men. Like, it was very much, they either were obsessed with her or, like, in the case of the very first date she's on, and then with her ex-husband, it was so
absolute monsters.
Over the top monsters that I'm like, do human beings, like, talk like this or act like this? It just seemed like every...
Yes, coming from my experience on my worst date.
Right. But didn't it seem like all... Like, if you took all the bad dates and put them into one person kind of thing?
It was over the top. It was over the top.
I think that a lot of the characters are very over the top. Like, let's just talk about the son for a second, because I'm a nanny. I take care of children. No child is that well behaved.
Right.
No child's like, okay, mommy, whatever you say.
He's more behaved than any of the adults in the book.
he's setting his mom up. His mom's like, go to bed. And he's like, okay, mommy.
I love you so much. Good night.
You're just waiting
so
for him to, like,
pretty.
stick a finger in his dimples. Be like,
And, like, I don't know. I just found the son to be so unrealistic. I'm like, no. Little kids are pieces of shit. Like, they talk back to you and they're little assholes. Like,
well, and it's like they can also, it's like I said before, it can be a good kid, but it doesn't have to be
a perfect kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as I really, at least for me, I like reading more real stories, more real romances.
This kid took to Vice right away.
Yeah.
Was just like, you're my daddy now. Essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, and the same thing with, like, the guy at the end, like, can I call you Pop?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I know.
Who are you?
That aspect of it
Robot.
was
I was like, your father is somewhere else. Like, it's just weird. Like, you're a child of divorce, and you're this willing to just be like, welcome into
so
my
chill.
life.
Yeah.
So chill.
Yeah. There were things with the son that I was just like, I mean, okay, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief because he's not the focal point of this story.
Right,
sure.
Like,
exactly.
it's okay. But yeah, there were aspects of that I was just, the him and Vice relationship seemed to advance very, very quickly.
Which is funny because Vice and I keep calling her Lila. Vice and Adalyn's relationship is like the opposite. Like it's
slow burn. Yeah,
it's so slow.
But I thought it was going to come out that he had a kid because of the way he was with Drew.
And I do like seeing. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Keegan, that there's like this great relationship between mother and son, mother and daughter, and I do love seeing that there's also this great bond between Vice and this child who's not his, you know, and
that is great to see.
Yeah, so there were a lot of good relationships.
Fast.
Yeah,
so
it was a weird pacing in general to the book, like just in terms of like how slow the romance went, but then when they got together, they were together, like they were together against all the odds, no matter what happened. And then to throw in the custody battle in like the last like quarter of it. I mean, so small. And then, you know, you have not only that, but that the ex-husband's with her sister that we haven't really heard about at all.
Yeah, we really could have used a lot more setup for that. Like, I feel like you had they touched on it very briefly. Oh, it makes me sad to think of my sister because we don't really know what's going on with her and we're not close with her and that's sad. Oh, she called me at this place and she wanted to talk. That was weird, but was also nice. Oh, she's with my ex-husband and trying to steal my kid.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and the way that it was delivered was off. But yeah, so interesting. Okay, what else did either of you like about the book?
I loved, my favorite scene is when he went down on her.
Yes.
Dear Lord. And what I loved about it was that it was all about her.
Oh, yeah.
And that made me so happy to read because after he went down on her, she was like, let me do something for you.
I'd love to reciprocate.
And he's like, this is all about you right now. And I was like, huh. And she's like, but you're hard. Don't you want me to, like,
give you some relief? Yeah.
And that's something that's really interesting because I dated guys where when they're hard, they're like, you gotta do something about it or else it's not gonna go away or I'm gonna be in pain or all this stuff.
Blue balls.
Yeah. And my boyfriend now is like, no, that doesn't happen. Like,
he's a keeper.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And it's like, no, it'll just go away. Like, you don't have to do something for
life
a man
will
just because
go
they're
on.
hard. You know what I mean? Like,
so funny.
And I thought that was amazing because he very much was just like, no, it's okay.
For a romance novel, they're really, like, she doesn't go down on him at all. Like,
no.
It's implied. But she wants to go down him in the shower. That's so unrealistic. You can't breathe.
I mean, that's a big one though that I've seen in a lot of romance. I think it's because it's like it's easier cleanup sort of situation, but shower sex to me is just problematic in general.
It's problematic in many ways. Like lots of bruises, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's a nice fantasy to have. Like I'm all about the fantasy, like perfect shower sex.
The older you get, the less you want to have sex in like weird places. Like the more you're just like, this is ergonomically irresponsible. I want to have sex on a bed.
Yeah.
If we're like maybe a couch, like we're not going. Not the floor.
Yeah.
Not fucking a shower, not stairs. That happens in movies sometimes. I'm like, what the fuck? Up against a wall. Like, no.
Especially carpet on the stairs. Like, no.
Knees are hurting.
But there's something about, like, blowjobs in the shower for me. Like, let's just, like, walk through this for a second. you would be either crouched, where your knees would start getting sore from that, or you'd be on your knees. And
that's a shower mat.
Unless you're like rich, like Vice, and you have like some like nice ass bench that's like heated and like rain showers
coming down. Even if you're not right in stream,
but it might not be
you
on
have something in your mouth, and then you can't breathe through your nose because water is going to get in your nose. But it might not be
on you. If it's a big enough shower. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If it's a large enough shower.
Cold.
You would be cold.
You'd be cold.
That's
but even
the trade-off.
so, like if the guy is somewhere within the stream and the water is coming down him, it's going down his body, and then it's going to go in your nose, and you can't breathe.
Okay, so, and then the trade-off is that if you're not in the water, both of you are getting cold.
Then why are you in there?
Right. Like, why can't you just be standing outside the shower?
Is that water is not a lubricant. So you have to go down on each other a little bit in order to kind of like lube it up a little bit.
Yeah, shower sex is not fun.
We don't ruin the fantasy.
I'm sorry.
No, I enjoy shower sex. I actually really enjoy shower sex.
I do not.
But it has to be. It's got to be quick. Like I'm not gonna, like, this is not going to be a 20-minute love session. It's got to be
a big shower.
It's got to be. I don't have a big shower. I
don't like.
You're a small person.
Small shower. I don't do a.
Some of us Adalyns and Kellys need a little bit more room.
You end up inevitably trying to put like a knee on a soap dish. Yeah. And then like you're bruising your like.
No, you just lean really far forward.
Okay. All right.
No, it's more like you're.
Man, our listeners got a lot more than they're bargaining for.
Like you're both getting ready for work in the morning. You gotta like take a shower. You might as well kill two birds with one stone. You're done. Keegan doesn't.
You know what though? I appreciate that more than, what drives me nuts when I read romance is when somebody has just gotten out of the shower and then they have sex and then she's like, oh, well now I gotta take another shower. Like, you just ruined your entire schedule for the day.
Your morning is fucked.
Yeah, you are going to be 20 minutes behind the rest of the day.
Yeah.
My God. Okay. So that took a turn. But yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. But I have to say, of the two sex scenes we got, I was very partial to the spanking scene. I enjoyed that very much.
I'm glad that was delivered on. That was like a very Chekhov gun
and
for me.
God,
like
they established that so early that
when is it going
to happen? It has to happen.
It was a payoff.
Like their like first meet is that they talk about spanking. Like there's multiple mentions of spanking. I was like, if this bitch doesn't get spanked in this book,
livid.
I am going to be livid.
She's always like wanted it kind of rough, and like never gotten it, and then just like bend over the bed, and I'm like, so
girl. That's like for me the most feminist part about the story is that it's kind of a reawakening for her. I mean, it really is her rediscovering not just herself, her body, but also a new partner and exploring new things with them. Yeah, and that's the thing is, as much as we're like putting down like the whole possessive alpha male situation, obviously that is something that a lot of people will appreciate.
Well, and clearly there were things that he did right as well. Like he was definitely...
Like the spanking thing to me is like a good example of being alpha.
And he was communicative with her about like what she wanted.
And he asks her if she's okay multiple times.
Very with her.
Yes.
And there was so much communication as far as like you could tell that she was self-conscious about her awkwardness. And he always validated her and making her feel like it's okay that you laugh or giggle or whatever because I want you to be comfortable and I want you to be yourself.
He's
and
like,
I like these things
make
about
whatever
you.
sounds you have.
In fact, I felt like that was like the only time in the book for the most part when Vice wasn't a dick is when he was using his dick. Like basically is when they were having sex were like the best scenes of communication.
Yeah, he was the most he was very it was all very consensual, which I really liked because when you're dealing with a alpha male like this who's as possessive as he is, I feel like it could very easily fall into a questionable gray area.
Very much.
Yeah.
The way that
50 Shades of Grey area.
50 Shades of Grey area. Yeah, where you're like, this feels wrong and abusive.
Exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. And she's awkward, but like you want to love her. You do. And I feel like a lot of people will love her for like the fact that she's not this perfect human being.
Yeah,
that she's.
I think that makes it more relatable than having two drop dead gorgeous people.
Yes.
Drop dead gorgeous together. Not that she's not drop dead gorgeous, but I mean that more in the sense of like the traditional terms.
And her personality isn't as like
she's not the type A.
I also like that they're older. Yeah. That they're both older and like older meaning they're not in their 20s. Like I feel like every book I've read lately, the heroine is 27 or 28.
Yeah.
So I mean the fact that she's
37.
Yeah, and he says his 40s. Yeah. So I'm like, it's nice. It's nice to see people at a different stage.
Even like Adalyn's mom is very like open about like she's like I wouldn't mind.
I loved her mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought her mom was so fun, but like super like spunky.
Yeah. Yes. It reminded me shockingly of me and my mom's relationship.
That's great.
I'm glad that my mom has never straight up said to me, I need to get laid.
Yeah.
But she has asked for a vibrator for Christmas for many years.
Oh, thanks, Mom.
Not doing it. Not buying her one.
You guys could do a party instead. Do like a
pleasure party.
Yeah. Not with my mother. I'm good. I'm good.
So you guys could buy your own vibrator.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Buy your own.
Right.
There's no shame in that game. Order one online.
Now, it does take a little while to get to the sexual content of this story. Yes. However, when we get there, like we all have mentioned, you have a couple scenes and both of them are pretty good.
Yeah.
Would either of you like to grace us with a short reading
of
perhaps your favorite excerpt?
Okay. She talks about her clit so much.
Yes.
And her walls.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never once had that thought in my head where I was like,
well, you gotta get creative with romance novels, you know, to like really describe what's happening.
It was just funny because I've never thought about that.
They get really creative with the names for vagina too. Like my least favorite one.
Swear, so she was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah,
and then she's like,
I forgot about that.
The amount of times she said hoo-ha and vajayjay were
just add it to her neuroses.
Like uncomfortable for me. And then he said like fucking and shit. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so this isn't like a book that is anti-cursing.
No.
It's a character choice.
She's a mom. She just doesn't want to put it out there, I guess. Like be appropriate for her kid.
I gotta say, the lines that literally made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, hit it.
Is when he says to her, I'll have my mouth on your pussy next. I've been dying for a taste. And I want to see your pussy before I devour it. That one.
Great.
Yeah, the second line.
Before I devour it.
Or devour that
which
pussy.
Which actually doesn't make me, like, I don't know. It's no judgment, just not for me, I don't think. Because that line, the devouring line, I'm just like, oh, that doesn't make me feel.
I mean, if a guy were to like be between my legs and be like, I want to see your pussy before I devour it, I'd be like,
I don't know. Yeah, like,
I would start laughing.
I don't know how I feel about that.
That was the same scene though, where she also, I do like that she mentioned the fact that she hadn't shaved her pubic hair.
Yeah,
and he's like,
too.
do you think I give a fuck?
Yeah, like, that's most men, especially most older men. Like, most older men do not care.
Right.
For the most part. But I think for me, with him, the lines about before they had actually like had any like actual sexual content and they had just like made out contact, him saying that he wanted to like taste her mouth or take her mouth. That's what he kept saying. I want to take your mouth.
Take that mouth.
I don't know, man. I was like, take my mouth.
This is
a weird way to put it.
Just go home to Anthony and be like, baby, take my mouth.
Like kind of like I'm gonna take her in the hay. You know, kind of like the same context.
And I understand that. And if a guy said he wanted to take me, I think I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Or like even if he said he wanted, even if it's like vulgar or whatever, he said he wanted to like take my pussy, I'd be like, okay. But like, take my mouth just seems like, are we in high school? I don't know. I don't like that.
So this is I'll read you some of the dialogue from this. I want to say this is the only, because they only have the one sex scene, right? They have like some makeout, they have him going down on her scene, and then this comes 87% of the way into the story, according to Kindle. So, but this dialogue just kills me. Although I do love that he's asking for permission, like as they continue to be together. And he says, "You good?" he asked. "Very much so," I nodded. "Vice?" "Yes, baby." Reaching up, I held onto his arms, which wrapped around my shoulders and chest. I'm not good with words, but I love you like a lot.
Oh my God, I know.
And then he says,
You're 37.
perfect response. He chuckled. Yeah, we did too. That's all I need, and having my dick inside you every chance I can. Giggling, I said, then let's make that happen.
Oh God, I know. The dialogue right before they fucked was just like, if I wanted to, like, masturbate to this, I don't think I would have been able to.
No, because it's like...
It's so goofy.
You would have started getting going. You'd be like, ooh, yeah, okay, this is starting to get good.
I like it.
And then the
like,
minute
I
they
love you
open their mouths...
Yeah, you're like, oh, gone.
Gone.
Especially her. Her.
Lady boner done.
Because, like, the actual description of their sex is hot.
The description of the actual sex, the description of the spanking,
hot.
And I'm into like some of the things he says. Like, I'm much more partial to the dirty talk than the holy shit.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm just like, oh, that's going to take anybody out of that moment.
What was it that they said in the last book that we covered together? She said something. She said, holy smokes, when he went down on her. And I was like, any feelings I may have had are gone.
Absolutely. Up in smoke.
Up in smoke.
Yeah. I mean, I guess sometimes if you're so down with the holy ship.
Down with the holy ship.
I feel like, you know, if you're getting that sort of pleasure, maybe sometimes random things will come out of your mouth.
But I need to feel that then. Like, I need to feel like you are just so overcome with whatever that you cannot form an adult sentence.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because otherwise I'm just like,
just don't talk otherwise.
Yeah,
like, just don't say anything. Better not to say any of it.
I still can't get over how much her clit spasms, though.
Yeah,
so I don't wish my clit spasms that much just in everyday life.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just maybe if you were around Vice constantly.
Need to do more Kegels.
Every time someone mentions it, I just start doing them.
Yeah, I'm doing them right now. We're all doing our Kegels.
But, like, I just don't think I've ever been like, ooh, my clit's spasming right now.
No, I don't think of, like, that would make more sense with, like, inside as opposed to the clit itself.
My actual clit, like, twitching.
Is that possible?
I don't know.
It spasms?
I mean, I guess when she says pulsating, I get that.
Yeah.
Where
because there's so many nerve endings.
Boner, you know? You get that pulsating, whatever, but spasming is very weird. But yeah, the one...
These are things I'm going to think about for a while now.
You know?
I am.
And there's one where it says, my clit spasmed along with my walls. Like, it just, I don't...
It was just going crazy down there. It was
like all of it. All of it together. And it's all going places.
So easily.
So fast.
She said she hadn't had sex in a long time.
Because when she first, there is a scene, so there's only those two, like, kind of sexual scenes between the two of them. But there is a scene early on after they make out where she goes home and, like, fingers herself or whatever.
Yeah.
And... she does come within, like, a paragraph.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone a while without sex in the past, and it's still not that easy for me. Like, it's a toss-up. Like, it might happen, it might not.
He's so hot, that Vice Salvatore.
I mean, he's just fucking Jesus Christ. I wanted that to be addressed whenever we finally met his mom. I was like, Gloria, level with me.
You named this kid Vice.
Did you name him? And I'm not gonna lie, when I was reading this book, because she says his name an awful lot, probably more than normal conversation you ever say. Like, I'm not like, Madigan, how are you doing today, Madigan? Madigan, how are you? You know,
that makes me uncomfortable.
It should. It's not natural. But
his name is also Vice, and he's her Vice.
Gotta
drive it home.
A little on the nose.
Yeah.
But, so I read it a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, at some point I just switched it to Vince because I'm like, I can't. Like, in my head, I was just like, I can't
rewrite.
Like, I can't take this seriously if I have to keep reading Vice over and over as a name. And no one's gonna bring it up. No one's gonna bring it up that it's weird.
No.
Like,
his sister's name is fucking Molly, granted different mothers.
But
it's like, family, all the rest of the names, like, although you
except for Den,
are
fairly normal.
Vice, but Vice?
Vice.
Yeah. Who would
I
name
kept thinking of,
Vice?
like, HBO's Vice.
Yeah.
Like,
but
that.
Can you imagine, like, a 2-week-old baby and being like, Vice?
Here's baby Vice.
It would be like naming a baby like Sodom. you wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it. It's weird.
Doing it.
That poor child.
You got dibs.
But you know what? Maybe it shaped him into the man he was, because, like, would he have grown up and opened adult stores and made porn?
He's got a name for
it. If his name wasn't Vice.
His name is literally Vice.
He literally could do nothing else. Yeah. It's like, you can't go and be, like, the CEO of another company, although it seems that he did, with the name Vice. Like, you can't move up the corporate ladder if they're like, Vice Salvatore is coming into interview.
It's definitely a name that nobody would forget. So, I mean, I guess that's good. Would either of you date Vice?
No.
Would either of you?
Actually, I have dated a guy very similar to Vice.
Okay.
I think I would sleep with Vice. Yeah. Maybe. But I would not.
From the sex scenes, I would.
Yes.
Like,
but the lead into them.
Yeah. But he probably couldn't actually get me to bed, because if that's how he acted in like normal life, I don't think.
Would either of you date Adalyn?
No.
Yeah. See, it's
I would be friends with her.
Me.
I would be friends with her.
Yeah.
Yes.
She seems like she would be fun.
She'd be my friend too, though, where I would want to like be like, oh, girl,
get
like,
it together.
Come on, you're not this much of a mess. Like, you don't need to be.
I would want to date and sleep with Clinton, her best friend.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Clinton and Molly seemed great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd hang out with them.
He just seems like everything that I want in a man. He's like the best friend. He knows everything. They have like good sex that they mention. Yeah. He's like super sweet.
Apparently
and
his dick is pretty big too.
I know. So
and he takes baths. I love a man who takes baths.
He bathes before going out with his boys. You know what I mean?
He's got like bubbles.
Yeah, I can't make it for 30 more minutes. I gotta hit the tub.
Take a bath.
Oh my god. There's so many well-hung men in this story too. I feel like that's a really rare thing. I feel like it's not very often.
Welcome to the world of romance.
I know.
Like, all men have good dick size.
Good dicks, and then the girls come like crazy.
No, in my dating life,
constantly.
In my dating life, I don't think there's been that many times. Like, maybe once that someone took their pants off and I was like, holy dong. Like, I think that's
just like that.
Happened once, and then I said that out loud.
That was a very,
Adalyn
did you say that out loud? That was a very Adalyn line. Holy dong.
Holy dong.
Can we also, okay, so the scene when she goes in and she sees him naked for the first time while she's peeing.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, this could not be less sexy.
And doesn't notice him until she's already, like, sat down on the toilet.
And it's, like, mid-pee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so much is wrong with that scene where I'm just like, why are you showering in your sister's house without the door locked? Yeah. Like, there are so many things about this that
she takes the towel from him?
She also comes through a lot of closed doors. Yeah. Like, a lot of doors that are closed that I'm just like, I don't know. To me, I'm just like, knock. Yeah. Like, this is like,
you're not in your own home.
Especially for a bathroom. Like, she's constantly going into bathrooms where the doors are closed. I'm like, that is the one place you always knock.
A question. Does that bathroom not have a lock?
I don't know.
Because I'm like, both times it was the same bathroom at
our
friend Molly's house.
It was, that's right.
And I'm like, also, there's clearly another bathroom in the bedroom. So I'm like, Clinton. Why are you not showering or bathing in that bathroom? Why are you in... Your fiance has a bunch of people over, and you're going to take a bath in the hallway bathtub?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, now that you mentioned that it was the same bathroom, too, it's also kind of a cheap joke to me that it's like, you got away with this once. Like, you had this, scene where she... sees the guy she likes and he's naked. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, I can get on board. But then to do it again.
And have it be her best friend, I would be scarred for life. Like, she gets like turned on. If I walked in on one of my best guy friends straight up naked in a tub,
and they don't address it.
That's gonna be hard to talk about.
They don't address it outside of Vice and Adalyn having that very weird possessive exchange.
Ugh, that was gross.
They don't address the fact that that's your best friend's fiance's
You're going to have to see him
who's like
every
your other
day.
best friend. Like,
right.
I can't.
And he's very chill about it.
Yeah. He's like, sup, here's my big old dog.
Here it is, I'm in the tub.
I deliberately didn't lock the door even though my fiance's mother is in the living room.
Like, I feel like, I know he grabbed a beer, but in my head he has like a glass of champagne with like bubbles and candles going.
Clearly not enough bubbles though.
Same.
No.
Not enough bubbles.
So to sum it up, Adalyn's awkward, Vice is possessive, and Clinton is the best because he takes manly bubble baths.
Yes.
Perfect. That's my kind of story.
Like, if we're gonna point out some things that I like about Vice outside of the things in the bedroom, we haven't touched on the fact that, because this is another fucking plot point, that Adalyn does have a business.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he does take her business seriously.
Yeah.
Which her ex-husband did not.
Yeah. And while, I don't know, we can get on the fence about whether or not we think it's good or bad or problematic or not that he had to step in for her business to take off and she wasn't capable of doing that on her own. He was supportive.
Yeah, so, I think it's that thing where it's like sometimes we do things for our partners with the best intentions and we don't realize that maybe we're overstepping our bounds.
Well, and he addresses it too, like himself. Like he knows as he's doing it, he's like, I can see where this could go very poorly because she's going to think I'm going behind her back. But really, it's not like I'm telling, because it's jewelry, right? She does jewelry.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's like, I'm not telling somebody that they have to buy her jewelry and make her famous.
And they made that very clear that, like,
it's only if you like it.
It's an introduction. Yeah.
And that's fine. That's how anyone gets anywhere. It's like networking through introductions.
I like that he acknowledged that.
Yeah, and he realizes that he is in a place of power because he has a lot of money. He knows a lot of rich people. He knows very influential people, where I feel like that's really helpful and like a very nice thing.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
I found it very weird that she had such a strong reaction and then it was blown over in a page.
He could have
I thought that was going to be the conflict.
He could have made it such a worse conflict. Like it could have been that he just threw money at her or something. Like, so I'm glad it wasn't that. Like, I liked the way he handled it.
And he was very good at de-escalating situations in like really like rational ways.
We're going to talk about
this. Yeah, and that's something I actually liked about their relationship because she was so irrational a lot of the time and flew off the handle, like so impulsive so much of the time that I did like that he grounded her in a way that didn't seem condescending.
No.
So I did like that. Overall, no, wouldn't date Vice.
No.
Right.
Not my type. No. Alpha males are not my thing.
No. It worked out well, I think, and I started to like him more as soon as they became an official couple.
Right.
Like, it was kind of like he was wearing a mask the whole time, and then when they did get together, we got to see how he really feels and everything. I'm like,
became straight up Leave It to Beaver at the end. Like,
yes.
Son, a dog. They get pregnant and then have 2 kids, and I'm like...
And get married.
What? And they have sex all the time. Like, she's waking up naked in bed.
And he's like, we fucked 2 times last night. And
I don't need... That was too much wrap up for me, personally. Like, I don't need this whole...
They put a bow on it, like, hard.
Big red bow.
Yeah. We live in an amazing house.
Yeah.
We have the perfect child. We have a good relationship with the child's father. Like, everything about it was just like... All right.
The mom and the kind of dad are like together.
Right.
The grandpa character.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
It worked out well for everyone
was a
except
retriever puppy.
Yeah. It worked out well for everyone except Adalyn's crazy ass sister.
Yeah, she's the only one who got
everybody else, even like the jerk ex-husband, like you're like, oh, we're okay with him now. Okay.
Yeah, and then Vice kind of like is cool with him too, and you're like, wait, but you made me hate him this entire book, and now I'm supposed to be okay with him? No.
And it's like, oh no, it was a sister. Oh, you mean the sister that none of us actually got to meet until the end.
Right. Cool.
Got it. Yeah, that was like my main criticism of the whole thing was just that I did enjoy it. I thought the characters were fun for the most part. I thought the romance was good for the most part. Yeah. But there would just be a lot of things popping up that just didn't seem necessary.
They were just unnecessary. Yeah, she could have done with a good editor.
I was going to say.
Because there were also like some things grammatically that I was like...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one thing that she said where... Gosh, who said it? Let me see. Oh, another laugh fell from my lips.
Yes, there were a few like spelling errors.
I didn't look it up to see as much about Lila Rose, but I thought it was interesting that Adalyn would use the term bugger. Like, she'd be like, bugger him and
we
bugger.
Address that. Where
so I was like
does
thinking,
this take place?
I know, because I thought it was England, then I thought it was the U.S., and I don't.
Because I assumed it was the U.S., and then I read that one line, and I just was like, and it happened a few times where she would say bugger.
And bloody.
Yeah.
As like, you know.
So I kept thinking, oh, maybe it's a British author. Like, but
then they said mom instead of mum, and so it confused me.
Well, did they ever specifically say where it takes place?
They don't.
Let's see. I'm just going to look up Lila.
I know. That's what I'm doing right now.
You know what's funny, too, is I'm looking at the other books she's written, and a lot of them are this motorcycle series.
Yeah.
So, which is not... Oh, it says Lila Rose has moved about Australia a lot of her life.
I wondered if it was Australia, but they say mum in Australia as well.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. I considered it...
It's not super important. Like, I don't need to know. No. It was just something that stood out to me as
throw me a few times,
different.
Though, because there were a lot of slang terms that were being thrown around that were like... British slang term.
She was born in Brisbane, Australia.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe I didn't realize that was an Australian thing too. To say bugger and
I did,
bloody.
But the mom really threw me because I thought in Australia they say mum as well.
Yeah,
I was fairly sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Interesting.
Well, there's that. Okay, well, so let's wrap up. Let's give this book, Making Sense, a couple grades.
All right.
Okay.
So we're gonna grade for the story, the syntax, and the sexcapades on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the very best that it could possibly be. So let's start with story. What would you give the story for this book?
1 to 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
10's the top.
I'll give the story. I'm a tough grader.
That's fine. I've learned this.
Yes,
I mean, the last book.
I was like a 3.
You know what? Before you even grade it, I have to ask you, Keegan, is how does this measure up to the last book we read?
I enjoyed this much more.
I did too.
Than the last book.
Although the last book was probably the most original thing I've ever read.
The last book was wild. Like that.
I want to read it.
It was something
wild.
else.
That book had ghosts, vampires, werewolves, dirigibles.
Yeah.
It was like out
steampunk, and it was set in like steampunk
Victorian England.
Oh my gosh,
There were
it was
assassins.
crazy. Yeah,
it was insane.
That is
I was
not
like,
this book.
Happening. That's not this book.
Not this one.
So I enjoyed this book a lot more.
Same.
Even though to me I feel like there needed to be more sex, more romance, I thought there was too much going on in terms of like too many plot points, too many characters. I did enjoy the story.
Same.
So I would give it a 6.5, 7.
Okay. No, I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I
was going to give it a 6 because I feel like for me it's more just like my taste value kind of thing.
Fine.
And also just, again, the plot points that were just kind of thrown all over the place.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it. Like, it was an easy read. It was something that was generally enjoyable for me.
Same.
So I would say I wouldn't go below a 6, but I definitely would give it like a solid 6.
I gave it a 6 as well.
Yeah.
I gave it a 6 as well, and it's something that like I don't know if I would specifically read this story again. I would go out and read something else. Like maybe I'd read Making Changes, the other book that Lila wrote.
To see how they are similar.
Yeah, and I really did. If you took out all the subplots and it was just about her rediscovering dating with this guy and this like awkward romance they have, I was fine with that. It was all the other stuff on top of it.
I agree.
That was just too much for me. So, but I think it's better than halfway there though. So I'd give it a 6.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think I'm going a little high because the other book that we read, I don't have a lot of experience in romance, and the other book that we read, I feel like gave us not enough character development at all, and this one gave us maybe too much. But I would rather err on the side of having too much.
Absolutely.
Because it makes you invested in the characters and what's happening to them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how about syntax? So Miss Lila Rose's writing. What do you think?
2.
Whoa,
that is so much lower.
Why? I'm very curious. Why?
Her grammar was awful. Her dialogue seemed so juvenile to me at times. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a snob.
Interesting.
I was like a literary snob, but like again, I read a lot. And there were just times where I'm rolling my eyes at her writing and how I can't follow the dialogue. Who's talking when and like what and. Yeah, I'm giving it a 2.
I'm comparing this so hard to our
to the other
book because to me, yes, there were moments I rolled my eyes at some of the dialogue.
Yeah,
it was
that's fine.
Juvenile, some of it, and the grammar wasn't great, and there was a lot of spelling mistakes. So I feel like she could have benefited from a good editor.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna give it 5?
You're very kind.
No, I give it a 6. So I mean, I'm with you. Like, I thought the tone was really fun most of the time.
I think I was just so like overshadowed by like the grammar and the spelling. And
Don't worry, I gave the other book a 2, so that's fine.
When it comes to the grammar, I don't read for grammar and spelling. Like personally, that's because to me that's not on the author as much as it is on the editor.
Yeah.
Like. So for me, I thought the tone was fun. The dialogue, there's definitely cheesy moments, absolutely. But there were also lots of moments where I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Like,
but it was
cute.
more, for me, it wasn't that it was cheesy. It was more that I couldn't follow some of the dialogue. When there was like five characters. In
I see.
Who the fuck is talking right now?
Yeah, definitely too many characters. She should have cut down on the number of characters.
And they wouldn't say who was talking. They would all just be talking.
No, it's because once they get going, and this is very common in romance, it's just that there's a lot more dialogue and conversation than you would probably typically read in maybe another side of fiction. But no, once you kind of get the hang of it and you're like, oh, well, there's these three people in the scene. Okay, like, but that's actually a good point to bring up, because it's, if you can't recognize who the dialogue belongs to, then is it really a signature of that character?
She didn't do a very good job. I'd say she did a good job with the characters she tried to develop. So Adalyn, Vice, the mom,
even the kid who I'm not fond of, but we know it's him.
She did a good job of developing their voices. I would agree with you that she didn't do a great job of giving, and maybe Trent, the older man.
Yeah,
she did a good job with him, knowing that it was him who was talking. Yeah. But other than that, I will say, like, some of the other characters,
a lot of the female secondary
Kenzie,
characters,
Grayson, a lot of these other characters, you didn't really know who was talking because their voices were all very similar. She didn't give them their own kind of character. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, by the way, that Grayson is actually the book previous. It's about that relationship.
Oh my god!
Because now that you're saying it, I'm pretty sure I read a review that was like, oh, I read this book,
Kenzie
and in this story, it's like they're friends. So
interesting.
Yeah, so something to check out. And then last but not least, the sexcapades.
Okay. There weren't enough of them. But the ones that were there
were good. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I would give it like a 7.5.
Okay.
I was thinking like a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, I'd give it an 8.
There, because there was a lot of really great tension and lead up.
Yes.
When you finally get to it, you're just like, yes, finally.
Yeah, the only thing that doesn't push it higher for me is those moments when they're talking to each other that pulls me out of it. But the actual, like, sex stuff is good. Good.
And I personally am okay with, like, a slow build up, like, as long as it is building up, which I feel like that was one of the things that the author did a really good job with.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Okay, so having read Making Sense, would either of you read another romance novel?
Yes. I want to read Making Changes now, especially if it's like the same kind of characters. And I think I didn't realize that there were so many, like, subgenres to romance novels.
Yeah.
So I feel like kind of finding ones that would make me happy.
If you like historical fiction, I think we could get you some.
Yeah, and such a reader that I want to, like...
I think that there are some romance novelists, if you want to call them that, like Anne Rice, who I feel like is an author first, and kind of like a romance novelist second.
I feel like that would make it better for me.
Yes, because her writing is so good.
And if you can write so well and get into such detail when it comes to a sex scene, like, you've got me. That would be great.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I think this is a good one to read as, like, kind of if maybe this is like one of your first romance novels. Yeah, I think this is a good one to start with.
Being on vacation on a beach, you don't want to read anything too heavy.
Yeah, definitely easy read, quick read. Yeah. You know, I mean, especially when you're kind of that. I mean, that's kind of one of the benefits of the slow burn too. Is like, because you're like waiting for it, you're like, I got to keep going. I have to see this through.
That is true. I was just like, I did find myself being like, okay, like I'm ready for it. So it does keep you going. It keeps you motivated.
It does.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, and absolutely, everybody should look forward to a lot coming in the month of March for your Angry Neighborhood Feminist. Yay! Okay, well, until the next time, thank you.
Thanks, guys.